Hi, this is Sherri Gallagher with Technicon Company, and in this video we're going to cover operations, but not design. Design is a separate video. When ISO 9001 first presented in the late 80s, there was a mistaken concept that the standard was simply for manufacturers and manufacturing. It was and is a management system and not limited to manufacturing systems. In the 1980s, the concept was to inspect quality into product. There was one group, operations, responsible for making the product as quickly and cheaply as possible, and another group, quality, were to inspect and prevent too much non-conforming product from reaching the customer. Producing 97 or 98% conforming product was a company with outstanding quality. Through prevention, planning, and an organizational attitude change toward quality, the normal expectation is producing at parts per million defect level, or 99.99964% conforming product. ISO 9001 has always been about reducing costs through preventing nonconformances. Prevention, not detection. This section of ISO 9001-2015 standard is directly related to the production of product or services. The sections of the standard are operational planning and control, requirements for products and services, design, control of externally provided processes, products and services, production and service provision, release of products and services, control of nonconforming output. Operational planning and control is all about planning, implementing, and controlling the process. The planning should be suitable to the organization and its operation. Once again, a small company versus a large multinational company, or a complex product versus a simple one-step process product, will implement planning and control very differently. The operational planning is the point where the company identifies the processes to produce each product, the requirements of the process, determines the needed resources, implements control of the process, determines, maintains, and retains documented information. This is the point where the company must understand the capability of their process and equipment and determine if they are capable of producing product at the parts per million defect level and any other requirements of the process such as temperature, pressure, etc. If the company is not capable, the organization must determine what resources are needed to make the process capable. The organization must also determine if enough existing resources are available, such as machine time or trained personnel. Is a second or third shift needed? Are there enough trained operators and supervisors to add the shifts? Resources are both equipment and people, and according to Dr. Deming, people are the most important resource of all. Some level of control is needed, whether it is a first and last piece inspection, a specified method of set up and run parameters, or statistical process control of key performance indicators. Knowing the controls, the organization must establish the documented information collected to provide evidence the process is in control. This includes a record of the measurement device and software used to accept the product as conforming. The organization must also determine how the documented information will be collected, stored, retrieved, the retention period, and the method of disposal. So here's an example. An injection molder will place controls on the type, size, and shape of the raw material, and the size of the press. The molder will track injection, pressure, and temperature. They may also track external factors such as humidity. Since the product is expected to have a useful life of approximately a year, they will set the minimum retention period of documentation for approximately 2 years. The performance requirements come from the customer and organization's own expertise in the product and manufacturing process, as well as statutory regulatory requirements. An important factor to determine early in the negotiation process is who at the customer has the authority to make decisions. You want to get paid. Here's a simple example. A product engineer designed a component part for the equipment being built. Procurement sent the order out to an approved supplier. The approved supplier asked for a change because they couldn't make the part as designed. The procurement approved it without consulting engineering. The entire order was unusable when it was received because of the approved change by procurement. But because procurement approved, without engineering support, there was a long drawn-out discussion as to whether the supplier would be paid or not. You don't want to be the supplier in that situation. Important documents for review when communicating with customer are purchase orders, contracts, and drawings. If the customer is supplying a component of the product, the requirements include delivery time and expected quality of the component must be defined. The organization should always have a contingency plan. For example, one of my clients received a component from their customer and modified it to create the finished product. The customer is notoriously late or short quantity of raw materials. However, when rating my client as a supplier, they gave my client a poor rating for on-time delivery and demanded a corrective action. The client was able to demonstrate that 100% of the late deliveries was due to the customer-supplied product. For a corrective action, my client required the customer to keep a stock of material at my client against future orders. As usual, it is up to the organization to know, understand, and comply with applicable regulatory and statutory requirements. The company must meet the claims of those requirements. If the product has a UL or CSA approval, the manufactured product must meet those requirements. The last piece of this section is very important. The organization must ensure it has the capability to meet all the requirements, including delivery and post-delivery activities, before accepting the order. Delivery is an important requirement that must be met. In ISO 9001-2015, there's been a slight attitude change when it comes to controlling suppliers. In previous editions, auditors looked to see if there was an approved supplier list, how suppliers were approved, rated, and where necessary, removed from the approved supplier list. There was discussion early in the process, usually including a review or a test of the supplied product. Afterward, it was the supplier's responsibility to control their process and provide product meeting requirements. The supplier had quite a bit of autonomy to make changes in the process without notifying the customer. However, after several scandals, and look up 60 Minutes report on VOC flooring purchased by lumber liquidators and the steel scandal from Japan, the ISO 9001 made the organization responsible for the purchased quality of materials and services. This includes products shipped direct from the outside supplier to the customer. The organization now needs to approve both the product and the supplier's process and perform validation of the supplying activities from time to time. This can be taking a coupon of material and sending out for analysis, or observing the supplier's process. At this point, the organization has defined a process, the requirements of the process, and has raw materials and components meeting requirements. It's time to make the product. Yay! The organization should have the necessary documentation to guide the manufacturing process to make consistently conforming product. This can include bills of materials, methods of manufacturers, job travelers, routing sheets, testing requirements, and documentation. The organization must ensure the necessary monitoring and measuring equipment is available and meets the requirements of Section 7.1.5 monitoring and measuring resources. Adequate infrastructure and work environment, competent and qualified personnel, validation and periodic revalidation of the ability to achieve planned results where a product cannot be verified, identify and eliminate human error, and implement a system to release and deliver product and post-delivery activities. The organization is finally making product to sell. Now, traceability requirements vary from industry to industry and product to product. In pharmaceuticals, traceability at every step and after every sale is critical. In consumer goods, usually traceability linked through bulk packaging is enough. Having part-level traceability can come in handy. I was working for a first-tier automotive supplier. The customer was charging back 1% of sales for non-conforming product returned from the user, but did not require corrective action. I requested the return of the non-conforming parts only to find that they were manufactured by a competitor. Having the ability to identify our parts saved the company 1% of sales. In ISO 9001-2015, it does require the status of all product to be identified at all steps. This can be as simple as a copy of the traveler in each bin or an identified location for tested material ready to move to the next step. It is important the organization communicate what these measures are and train to meet them. It is becoming more popular to use barcode labels or barcode on the traveler and using scanners to verify the correct material was utilized. You need to take care of customer-provided property. You need to maintain the property according to agreements, store it adequately, and be able to identify it immediately. Customer property should be protected from damage and periodically inspected. The results of inspection, including any loss or damaged material, must be reported to the customer. The communication with the customer is documented information. Customer property can be molds or raw materials and components, or intellectual properties or personal data. Think of a medical billing company. Preservation is more than preventing shipping damage, although it is also part of this requirement, as product moves through the system, it must be protected. Steel parts may need to be placed on racks to prevent damage. Computer code needs to be protected from insertions or deletions. Preservation also links back to identification and traceability, as it includes maintaining identification. Even storage must be reviewed. I worked with a company that had a warehouse in a humid environment. Product was stored and corrugated and stacked several boxes high. Of course, product on the bottom of the pile was crushed, and the company had to implement environmental controls to control the humidity. Post-delivery activities is one of the clauses most frequently deemed not applicable. You should take care that it is to make sure that it actually is not applicable. If the helpline exists, this is a post-delivery activity. To determine if post-delivery activities are required, consider statutory and regulatory requirements, potential undesirable consequences associated with the product or service. If it's wired incorrectly, will it burn the building down? The nature and intended life of the product. Marshmallows are used up quickly, so no service or installation is required. Customer requirements. After installing new software, there's a learning curve. If there isn't a helpline, what will be the customer rating for the product? Customer feedback. The customer doesn't understand the instructions and drops a frozen turkey into a deep fryer. Control of change. The organization must control change and plan for change and the associated risks. We can no longer buy pieces of equipment and see if it's going to create nonconformances without having safeguards to keep these nonconformances from getting to the customer. Have you ever gotten to the end of a project that you're assembling only to realize you made a mistake in the beginning and now must disassemble the whole thing and start over? That is the point of the section on release of product and services. Product should be tested as it proceeds, or processing parameters monitored and reviewed so nonconformances can be caught as early in the process as possible and corrected. In some cases, final testing can take months to complete. The organization must either hold the product for that time period or get permission from a relevant authority or customer to release the product without testing completed. If the product is a concrete foundation, for example, cores will be taken and tested to ensure the foundation can hold the weight of the building. Some tests take into account and adjust for cure time, so the construction project does not have to shut down until the concrete is cured. As usual, the organization must keep appropriate documented information that includes evidence of conformity and traceability to the person authorizing the release. Did you know that frontline supervision in pharmaceutical companies has a very responsible role? If the supervisor knowingly releases non-conforming product resulting in death, the supervisor can be charged with criminally negligent homicide. Control of non-conforming outputs is the last element we'll cover in this video. The controls are pretty straightforward. Segregate and identify non-conforming product and prevent it from getting back into the product stream or to the customer. If non-conformances are detected after delivery, evaluate on-hand product, segregate it, and identify it, and determine if other customers need to be notified to destroy or return product. Actions can be correction, reworking it, but you have to have verification testing. Inform the customer. Obtain authorized acceptance under concession. But be careful, if the product is certified by an outside source such as UL or CSA, concession is not an option. Suspension of provision. In other words, stop making and stop selling it. Documented information must include a description of the nonconformity, the actions taken, any concession, the authority deciding the actions in respect of the nonconformity. Keep in mind, for many years, this section of the standard was the main section implemented on ISO 9001-2015 and was considered a manufacturing standard. Section 8, Operations, is the implementation of the standard in general in generating the saleable product, goods or services. It includes planning, defining, controlling outsourced processes and non-conforming product. If you have any questions or comments, please check out our website, technicon.com. Email us at technicon1986@spcglobal.net or call us at 708-814-3685. And go have a wonderful day.